Good evening, everyone. If I could have your attention, I'd like to call this meeting to order. I'm Krista McNamara, the Darien Town Clerk. Today is Monday, May 13th, and we're here for the budget vote, amongst other resolutions. I'm going to call this meeting to order. We have 71 in attendance. Also a note before I hand it over to your moderator, Seth Morton, we do have extra copies of the handout that was distributed by Jack Davis for the overview of the budget, if anyone would like a copy. Thank you.
I thought I'd start with a little bookkeeping tonight. There'll be plenty of it, I understand, but this one's of a lighter nature. The RTM members are clearly invited to march in the Memorial Day Parade. It would help me if you would raise your hand if you thought you might want to do that, so I can give sort of a count to the Monuments and Ceremonies Committee, which runs the Memorial Day Parade. So those who think they might be marching in the parade, hands up, please. One. Folks, no guts, no glory. Well, that was easy. Thank you very much for that. Okay. Without objection, I'll accept the agenda. Any objection? And I have a motion to approve the minutes of the March 18 meeting. Jim, second, please. Thank you, Jenny. Are there any additions, deletions, comments on them? I hear none, see none. All those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Don't hear any. Abstentions? Don't hear any. First item, so the minutes stand approved. Next item is in-district special education transportation item for $755,000. Speaking on behalf of the Education Committee, Ed Washeka. Don't scare me like that, Ed.
I'm Ed Washeka, District 3 and Chair of the Education Committee. I move the resolution 2414. Do I have a second? Second. With no objection, I will waive the reading of the resolution to approve $755,000 to acquire special education transportation vehicles. This purchase came about after the initial presentation of the budget, which we will get to shortly, and so ended up on this separate track from the capital budget. This purchase moves in-house some of the transportation that the district currently contracts from its busing provider. Our normal bus contract was rebid for the district and cost increased considerably. The administration concluded that they could insource one modest part of this contract tied to special education transportation that the district provides. The district is not insourcing the entire bus contract and is still contracting with its current provider for the bulk of our transportation needs. However, for this limited mission, the district will hire drivers and bus monitors, pay benefits, provide supervision of the drivers, pay for maintenance and insurance on the vehicles, and most significantly, purchase the vehicles. The administration performed a payback analysis and concluded we would save approximately $500,000 per year when compared to the cost of $1.6 to $1.8 million per year with first student. So over 3 years, we would save about $550,000 net cash, meaning net of the $850,000 investment in the vehicles. That was when this analysis was done. The RTM met virtually in a joint meeting with F&B on March 11th, with 10 members present, and voted unanimously to approve the spending of $850,000 at that time. Subsequent to the meeting, the Board of Ed revised its purchase, and the Board of Finance approved $755,000 for the purchase of Sprinter vans and Suburbans, which is what we are voting on tonight. As the committee voted unanimously, with 10 of 14 members present, to support the matter at its original larger size, we suggest the full RTM approve this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Speaking on behalf of the Finance and Budget Committee, Jack Davis.
I'm Jack Davis, District 3, RTM Finance and Budget Committee Chair. What I've been trying to do, and before I present this committee's report on this budget night, I'd like all the members of the F&B committee to please stand, if you don't mind. Bill, you can sort of just wave because I know you're in crutches, but you see me up here often, well, really a little bit more than often. But I'm really the mere face of this group of people who attend or watch multiple meetings, ask tough questions, contribute to and review many of the financial issues. We have two of our members who are not here tonight, traveling on business. Bill Dunn is one and Charles Teschner is the other. But I did think that they need to be recognized besides just seeing me up here and talking. Besides that, they're more interesting than I am. Okay, back to work. The Board of Ed has been running suburban vehicles to reduce the cost of special ed. This year, their capital budget had a seventh Suburban, a replacement for one of the original vehicles, and the purchase of an ADA-compliant wheelchair van. Two of these budgets are now included in the transportation initiative that we're here to approve. At the same time, the transportation contract with the school was up next year, and the increase was going to be about 12%. Because of that, they've decided to take on the full special ed transportation. This has been approved by the Board of Ed, and it's resulting in savings. The return, based upon the new numbers, is about a year and a half. But remember, the contract that the Board of Ed will be signing is really for 5 years. So while Ed went over a really good return for 3 years, just remember there's another $1 million of potential savings out there going forward. The mix of vehicles changed. There's 9, 2 Suburbans, 3 Sprinter vans, 2 Type 2 buses, and 2 wheelchair. The special appropriation is being requested, as opposed to putting this in the budget, so that they can go within 10 days of once our approval to go out and purchase these so that they can have delivery no later than August 1st, so they can start to do routes and training in that. The operational aspects and financials was really a team effort. It was put together by the Board of Ed, John Zagroski, Kate Bush, Jim Palin, and members of F&B all contributed to looking at their schedules. It's extremely conservative in what their outlook is, including pensions and everything else like that. So while we're not voting on that, which is already included in their budget, I have a lot of confidence in what was put together. The RTM Finance and Budget Committee voted unanimously, actually twice, once with the Education Committee, and then with the new number we voted again, in favor of this resolution on April 24th, and recommends the same to the full RTM. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Any other committees? Okay. Public officials? Members of the body? Comments? Electors of the town? Looks like we're ready to vote. Ready to vote? Okay, all in favor, please rise. Opposed, please? Abstentions? Thank you. Okay, while we're getting the results of that in, I'll go ahead and move along to the next item. Appropriation of $1,671,000 from the unassigned fund balance to fund capital projects that otherwise would have been funded through a transfer from the general fund. Speaking on behalf of Finance and Budget, Jack Davis.
Yes. I'm Jack Davis, District 3, RTM Finance and Budget Committee Chair. I move Resolution 24-19 to authorize and appropriate $1,671,000 from the unassigned fund balance to fund capital projects. Do I have a second? I have Patty. If there's no objection, I waive the reading of the resolution. This is the first of several budget resolutions we will be addressing tonight. I thought I might start with an overview and look to the future. This was a tough budget year, but let me warn you, next year will not be any easier. In fact, it may even be a tougher year. So it's worthwhile to take stock and understand some of the challenges that we're going to be having looking forward. We're going to be covering some of them in tonight's budget, but some of them are going to carry forward. This year, again, the town benefited from ARPA funding to cover through reallocation approximately $1.6 million of capital projects, including the Phase 2 on the I&I study, Public Works front loader and sweeper, police weapons, park and rec repairs and storage trailers, and other small projects. Final ARPA allocations must be done by December 31st. We're not going to have those funds available to move capital into them in fiscal year 26. The town also used $400,000 of reserve fund of capital non-recurring expenditures contingency for various capital projects. Both of the above could have required either bonding or payment by increasing taxes. The town has benefited from high rates flush with cash, generating an investment income surplus of over $2.3 million, and this year we increased the investment income by approximately $1.5 million, making a $3.8 million benefit that I do not expect to see in fiscal year 26. And remember, Chairman Powell continues to threaten to reduce rates sometime this year. Major town developments are moving ahead. One can expect lower building revenues in the future. And certain costs continue to rise, most notably the Board of Selectmen and Board of Ed healthcare costs. Once again, there's always risks of unfunded mandates coming from Hartford. This year, 2 such mandates increased part of the Board of Ed budget. For fiscal 24 and 25, some of the general Great Island debt has been issued with bond anticipation notes, which is 1-year debt, and the town is only paying interest on this. Unless we're getting too wimpy that we're borrowing today, but I'll pay it on Tuesday, at some time we're going to have to start paying principal with the interest. Moody's has revamped their municipal criteria, which the town does meet, and the Board of Finance will be addressing during the coming year. But we have to be cognizant because that's going to affect some of our fund balances. And lastly, and I want to thank some of the people that are leaving or have left, The Board of Finance is going to have a relatively new team. We have a new Park and Rec director. We have a new police chief. Our health director, Dr. Knopf, is retiring. And we're also losing Tony Himicki, our tax assessor, who may be one of the best, if not the state in the country. And so those replacements will have an effect because people just don't come in here and hit the ground running. It takes some time. On a positive note, the town remains AAA rated. There has been a rethink on issuing debt. We're not issuing debt this year in the budget, you'll notice. Our grand list is strong, and honestly, our taxpayers' payments are even stronger. In addition, the town continues with very strong financial discipline. One last thought. Our budgets and some of the costs are going to be increasing. And throughout my own personal career, I dealt with disruptive technologies and really disruptive thought processes. One of the challenges for Darien and most other towns will be to implement the type of thought process that addresses future challenges ahead. What are we providing? What do we need to continue to provide? Is there a better way to execute or deliver? How does that fit into the overall strategy? And what do we need to do? The resolution before us now, this is slide 1 for up there. They're going to be showing slides on channel 79. The resolution before us is the allocation of unassigned fund balance to reduce the fiscal year 25 capital project funds necessary to be raised through taxes. First, let me remind everyone that general fund balances can only be used to reduce the outstanding debt for capital or for special appropriations, which should be unexpected appropriations during the course of a fiscal year, or those that could not be fully defined in the time for a budget process. I'm going to state this more than once. Unassigned fund balances cannot, and let me repeat that, cannot be used to offset future budget operations. I've heard many discussions during this budget process on that. It cannot be done. Slide 1. The town starts with approximately 31 million. We only had one drawdown on that. That's the harbor dredging that we did for 26. That was 2415. We're expecting another one to be addressed in the June meeting. That will be before us. They project revenue increases of $4 million. The projected town surplus on the expense side of almost $870,000. And when the budget was done, the Board of Ed running deficit was approximately $210,000. That will be reduced by the time it comes to us in June. That generated an amount of approximately $35.5 million, or 20% of our amount. The Board of Finance then determined how much of the money they could use to pay down capital and initiatives. And they came to the conclusion that $3.5 million was the appropriate amount. But they know that they had the $755,000 that we just approved for the special education transportation. And there's a security initiative coming from the Board of Ed that we also anticipate we might be addressing in June. That's a little over $1 million. So those amounts were deducted from the 3.5, and the resulting amount was the $1,671,000, which will be used to reduce the amount of funds needed to be raised by taxes to pay for capital. This is what we're approving tonight. On slide 2, which I'm not going to go over, gives a rundown of some of the various expenses on the Board of Selectmen side. You can see that investment income is up. The first one, let me just talk to you about that first one on the revenue side for approximately $600,000. Every year when we calculate as a town what our collection rate is, we do an adjustment of 25 basis points over the 5-year average. We do that because what the assessments are that we use to calculate our budget is not necessarily the assessments that get billed July 1st. There are changes. Most of the time, it's changes down. So there's a little bit of a cushion there to make sure that what we are intending to collect from a budget perspective is there. In this year, and usually it runs about $300,000 to $400,000 is the amount of that 25 basis points. This year, we actually collected more taxes than what we anticipated, and that's the incremental $600,000 that you see on the revenue side. Anyway, I think I've covered enough on this. I do want to say that the RTM Finance and Budget Committee met on April 24th and voted unanimously in favor of moving this amount and recommends the same to the full RTM. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Any other committees? Okay. Any town officials wish to speak? Okay. Members of the body? See none. Electors of the town? See none. Ready to vote? All those in favor, please rise. The results on 24-14 on the buses, 74 yes, 1 no, 1 abstention. No votes, please. Abstentions. Okay, while we're bringing that in, I'll move on to the next item. Approval of the FY24 to 29 and FY25 to 30 capital improvement plans. This is a new requirement. The state requires us to approve these and forward the approval to them. So it hasn't appeared in the agenda for this meeting before. Speaking on behalf of the Finance and Budget Committee, Jack Davis.
I'm Jack Davis, District 3, RTM Finance and Budget Committee Chair. I move 24-20. The RTM hereby approves the fiscal year 2024 through 2029 and the fiscal year 2025 through 2030 capital improvement plan as presented in the fiscal year 24 and fiscal year 25 proposed budgets. Do I hear a second? I have Joe. The resolution reads, whereas the most recent accounting practices require documentation establishing the approval of a capital improvement plans, now therefore be it resolved that the representative town meeting hereby approves the fiscal year 2024 through 2029 and the fiscal year 2025 through 2030 capital improvement plan as presented in the fiscal year 2024 and 2025 proposed budgets. This is predominantly because we receive money from the state for a grant called LoCIP. It's about $100,000 that we receive. The LoCIP program requires that projects funded with LoCIP grant, which is local capital improvement money, be included in the most recent approved capital improvement plan. Although the capital improvement plan has been reviewed in the past during the budget process, the RTM has not formally approved these plans. We will do so in this year and the future, and we're including 2024 and this resolution to formally approve it for the projects being funded through LoCIP for the current year. The Connecticut Local Capital Improvement Program distributes formula-based funds to municipalities for eligible local capital improvement projects such as roads, bridges, and public building construction activities pursuant to Connecticut General Statute 7-535 through 7-538. The RTM committees, including RTM Finance and Budget Committee, have reviewed their respective 6-year capital plans and found the plans as presented in the fiscal year 24 and 25 proposed budgets to be materially presented. Going forward, a review of the 6-year capital improvement plan and a formal approval process of said plans will be incorporated into the Board of Finance and the RTM budget process. The RTM Finance and Budget Committee voted unanimously in favor of approving this resolution and recommends the same to the full RTM. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Any other committees? Okay. I have you,
I thought I was second.
not on this one. But don't go anywhere. Town officials? No. Members of the body, comments? Okay, electors of the town, looks like we're ready to vote. All in favor, please rise. The results on 2419, 75 in favor, no noes, 1 abstention. No votes, please. Abstentions? Okay, as we're putting that together, I'll move along to the next item, which is really the beginning of the budget. The first item is appropriation of the reserve fund for capital non-recurring expenditures of $4.2 million. Speaking on behalf of the Finance and Budget Committee, Jack Davis.
I do want to apologize, but apparently it's my understanding that the mic up here is somewhat fuzzy to those listening in the audience. So for those listening, we apologize. If you're asking me to fix it, wrong person. Or I could just be speaking fuzzy and you just... I'm Jack Davis, District 3, RTM Finance and Budget Committee Chair. I move 2421A, be it hereby resolved that the RTM of the Town of Darien hereby adopts the following appropriations for the July 1st, 2024 to June 30th, 2025 budget. Resolved that an appropriation of $4,205,547 is hereby made from the Reserve Fund for capital and non-recurring expenditures for the purpose of meeting expenses of the Town of Darien as shown by this budget this day approved. Do I have a second? I have Jan. Slide 3. This slide shows the amounts of capital requested and approved by the Board of Finance. There were several proposed projects that were deferred by the board. Those items will be addressed by the committee reports. A quick discussion on capital projects, because this is another thing that had some really interesting conversations during this budget. Every expenditure for any category needs to be authorized. The capital projects are not thrown into some mysterious black hole where everything goes into. Every project is assigned a number, and all expenditures are recorded to that project. Should there be a surplus at the end, that amount is allocated twice a year into the Reserve Fund for Capital Non-Recurring Expenditures Contingency. That's slide 4. Small overages are also taken from that contingency. If there's a significant overage, additional funds is required through the normal process. Capital funds, once allocated, again, cannot be used for operating expenses. Again, surplus capital project funds cannot be used to fund operating expenses. I'm sorry for repeating this, but in multiple conversations I have heard throughout this budget process, this seems to be a point that people need to understand. Again, as previously mentioned, while this is an approved capital plan for fiscal year 25, we have seen in prior years unexpected capital projects arise during the course of the year or special appropriation requests for capital. There will be work during the summer to ensure that the unexpected or special appropriations becomes expected so they can be addressed during the annual budget process and not off cycle, so that the Board of Finance and the RTM can determine if we're paying it with general funds or through taxes. As previous mentioned, closeouts resulted in, this on slide 4, only $100,000 of transfer. That's the result of either better forecasting of projects or simply higher costs. Some projects do have some small contingencies. In any event, you're now going to hear from the other committees, but F&B committee voted unanimously in favor of this resolution and recommends it to the full RTM. Now other committees will report on their areas.
Okay, Ed. There you go. Ed Washeka speaking on behalf of the Education Committee.
All this attempt at choreography, and I didn't read. I'm Ed Washeka, District 3, and Chair of the Education Committee. With respect to the capital plan, given the building program underway, the district's capital spending on other projects continues to be modest. After a few reductions by the Board of Finance, the administration plans $1,164,000, with the largest chunk, $692,000, at the high school for Phase 2 of the auditorium upgrade, replacement library carpet and furniture, new pole vault mats, radio replacements, and a license plate reader. A further $241,000 is allocated to Middlesex for chimney repair, self-closing doors, and license plate readers, and an oil tank monitor. The balance consists of odds and ends and a variety of small equipment replacements. We reviewed the 6-year plan as presented in the budget process, but our discussion at our meetings throughout the budget cycle really focused solely on next year's budget. As a reminder, the 6-year plan has considerable upcoming costs for roof replacements and air conditioners totaling $27 million. Consequently, we are generally supportive of the 6-year plan, which we will be voting on tonight, but our committee vote, held May 6th, was unanimous with 8 of 14 members present to support the 2024-2025 capital spending plan, as we had not had discussions regarding the particulars of the longer-term plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Speaking on behalf of Planning, Zoning, and Housing, Amy Zabatakis.
Hi, good evening. Amy Zabatakis, District 5, Chair of Planning, Zoning, and Housing Committee. On March 7th, our committee held our regular meeting with 10 members of the 14-person committee present, representing a quorum. Jeremy Ginsburg, Director of Land Use, was present during the meeting to provide an overview of the Zoning Department and Building Department budgets and answer our questions. The capital line item in the P&Z budget includes $50,000 in this year's budget for the multi-year project required by the state to update the town's plan of conservation and development, as well as the affordable housing plan. There will be additional expenditures. We're looking at $75,000 next year and $35,000 in 2026. The plan will be completed in 2026. The plan of conservation and development is a plan that is redone every 10 years as required by state statute. But it does take quite a bit of time to get it put together, which is why we're starting now. The Planning and Zoning Commission is currently in the process of selecting a new consultant to do the plan. So as far as the 6-year plan, we may see some changes in the capital request, but this is the estimate for now with $50,000 approved by our committee for this year's budget. I know we got a lot going on, but I just want to take 2 seconds to just put a little bit of a plug in for the Plan of Conservation and Development. This is the overarching document that talks about the town's goals as far as land use. And it is the first thing that any project that comes in, you have to show that it complies with the town's Plan of Conservation and Development. There will be opportunities, probably more in 2025, for public input on this plan. I'm going to plan to try to let everyone know when those opportunities arise, because it is very important that we get public input, and it's very important that this body give input into the plan as we move forward and as it's developed. And like I said, this year we will be including both the Plan of Conservation Development and our affordable housing plan. So sorry, I got a little off track there, but there's my plug for getting public involvement. But in the short term, our committee did unanimously approve the capital budget for the Planning and Zoning Department. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Speaking on behalf of Public Health and Safety Committee, Mac Patrick.
Wow, Amy, tough act to follow. I'm Mac Patrick, District 5, I chair Public Health and Safety. Our committee met on April 24th in a special meeting with 11 and 13 members present, and we discussed aspects of the capital relating to areas that we follow, predominantly police and fire. Of note, police have a capital budget $434,000, which is $349,000 is related to vehicle replacement, and the rest is various other equipment. The Darien Fire Department has a capital budget of $93,000 for a firehouse exhaust mitigation system and heating piping replacement. The Norotan Fire Department has a capital budget of $160,500 for self-contained breathing apparatus and building generator. And the Norotan Heights Fire Department has $180,500 of capital requested for self-contained breathing apparatus and apparatus exhaust filtration and removal. The Fire Marshal has $37,000 allocated for software replacement and to convert a pickup to a utility. So that total is about $900,000. But we voted unanimously as a committee to approve the capital items, and we ask that you do the same. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you, Mac. Speaking on behalf of Park and Recreation Committee, Adele Coniff.
Good evening. Appropriation in the Reserve Fund for Capital and Non-Recurring Expenditures for Parks and Recreation, $276,100. The RTM Parks and Recreation Committee has followed the Parks and Recreation Commission's budget process beginning in October and November 2023. Our committee participated in the Commission's Parks Tour in November, which highlighted many of the capital projects in this request. Cherry Lawn, $275,200 was requested to repave the driveway at the Nature Center to address the deteriorating conditions of the driveway, and included the repaving of the parking lot next to the Nature Center, as well as the curbing and sidewalk in front of the building. $75,000 was approved by the Board of Finance for patching potholes, curb repair, and related millwork. $200,200 was deferred to the 2025-2026. $9,000 was requested to repair the retaining wall near the overflow parking lot. This request was removed from the capital budget, and $2,600 was added to the Parks and Recreation operating budget. $8,500 was requested for a traffic study to address potential traffic and parking issues. The study would provide insights into whether additional parking or changes to the entrance egress are necessary. The traffic study was deferred to 25-26. $22,000 was requested to address the cracks in the basketball court. This project will be paid for with ARPA funds. Baker Park, $11,000 was requested to replace the deteriorating fence at Baker Park. The fence will be replaced using ARPA funds. Houlihan Field, $36,000 was requested to replace the backstop and the adjacent fencing at Houlihan Baseball Field. There are gaps in the fencing which affect functionality and containment of balls. The project was deferred to 25-26. Weed Beach, $20,600 was approved to strip and paint one paddle court. This is the second court to be resurfaced in a multi-year plan. $40,000 was requested for security cameras at Weed Beach and Cherry Lawn Park, where the town has experienced vandalism. The request was not funded. $50,000 was requested to replace the gatehouse. The gatehouse was purchased in 2002, and exposure to salt and water has caused significant rust and deterioration. This request was deferred to 25-26. $135,000 was requested to upgrade the tennis wall and asphalt court, which are over 30 years old and have deteriorated. This request was not funded. Equipment. $5,000 for small capital was funded. $6,000 for replacement of 3 AEDs was funded. The current equipment is outdated and no longer reliable. $120,000 for replacement of a dump truck was funded. The old truck is used for plowing and the bed has rusted through. $16,500 for a stand-on blower was funded. This machine allows staff to be more efficient with their time, leaving time to do extra projects. Total, $276,100, including $33,000 ARPA funded. The RTM Parks and Recreation Committee met on April 10th with 11 members participating, 9 members in person and 2 members on cell phones, constituting a quorum, and voted 8 members in favor and 3 members opposed to the 2024-25 Parks and Recreation capital and non-recurring expenditures. The members who voted in opposition were not opposed to the capital request, but were expressing their frustration with the lack of attention by the selectmen to the Pear Tree Beach project that would address parking lot, dredging, and boat ramp issues at the beach. The project has been pushed to 26-27 in the 6-year capital improvement plan, and the deep permits expire in 2027. The majority of the committee voted to support. I'll stop here, and I understand that the Board of Selectmen were talking about this at their last meeting, so thank you very much. The majority of the committee voted to support 2024-2025 Parks and Recreation capital and non-recurring expenditures and asked the RTM to do the same.
Thank you. Thank you, Adele. Speaking on behalf of Public Works, Mark Adaletta.
Thank you, Seth. Good evening, Mark Adaletta, Chair of the Public Works Subcommittee to the RTM. At a special session of the Public Works Committee held on May 8th, with 11 of 15 members present, the Public Works Committee considered and voted unanimously to approve the 2024-2025 capital plan. Several items worth noting are as follows. It includes $165,000 for new sidewalks. These are basically filling in where there's current sidewalks that end and are focused on areas to promote pedestrian flow and safety, specifically down on Tokenique Road, the Sedgwick, and Old Kings Highway South. There's $1.377 million for town paving. This is part of a 20-year cycle of repaving all the streets in town. That should cover approximately 5.8 miles of new paving. This is pretty much flat with recent years' average to this line item. There's also the paving of the Heights Road parking lot up there by the depot, now that that drainage project is complete. There's $90,000 for the post 53 parking lot repave. Once that particular section is done, the DPW will begin the next project for a pedestrian walkway down to the platform. That's the train platform in the lower lot there. There's $7,500 included to repair a worn area of the town hall gym floor. This item was noted as a safety item, and it was also noted this will extend the life of that floor a bit. There's the regular $5,000 allocation for tree replacement, which is usually related to either storm damage or resident request, followed up on by the DPW. I think that's flat. That is flat year on year with prior year. There's also $50,000 for the Old Kings Highway Bridge repair, design, and installation of scour protection to prevent erosion to the footings as identified in the CT DOT Bridge Inspection Report. And finally, I note the $500,000 of sidewalk rehabilitation has been pulled from this budget. I'll touch on that again when I address the 5-year plan. But there is a balance sufficient in the reserve to cover that item. And then I also note there's a $400,000 front-end loader that was due for replacement that was removed from this budget and is on the ARPA list that I think Jack touched on earlier. There's a handful of other smaller items on that ARPA list Jack alluded to that had previously been moved to the ARPA list. With regard to the 2025 through 2030 capital improvement plan, the same committee on the same evening voted with 11 of 15 members present, 10 in favor and 1 opposed to acknowledge the plan as presented. There were items the committee sought clarity on, in particular 2. The sidewalk commercial item for $140,000 that's listed out there if you have the schedule in front of you out in 2026, 2027. Subsequently, the Public Works Director clarified that that is an existing project currently delayed pending certain approvals related to the upgrade and extension of the sidewalk, also down near Tokenie Commercial District. There was also a question as to why there was money sitting in that sidewalk rehabilitation reserve that I just noted. The Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance, while they addressed that item in their meetings, didn't address why there was a balance still there. We sought clarification, and the Public Works Director subsequently clarified that that is a carryover from projects funded during COVID, but not executed upon for various reasons, including the inability to secure contractors. So that money is what's being used for this year's $500,000 line item. The Public Works Committee has been updated on both of these points. And finally, an observation was made by the dissenting member on this vote regarding the capital improvement plan, the 5-year capital improvement plan, that this should be viewed more of a forecast than a plan. Their expectation is that there would be revisions each year, funding sources considered, and as such, the term forecast is perhaps more appropriate than plan. For the sake of clarity, the committee was not opposed to the 5-year capital plan, but simply wanted the clarifications I just made noted, as well as their views summarized in front of this body, which I have just done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. I think every committee is reported, except for TGS&A. You got anything you want to know? I didn't think so, Frank. Okay. Comments from town officials. Okay. Comments from the body. See none. Electors of the town. Okay. Looks like we're ready to vote. All those in favor, please rise. Results on 24-20, 73 in favor, 1 no, 2 abstentions. Resolution carries. Our next order of business will be now to go into abstentions. Didn't see any, no. Okay. Next, we move to appropriations in the general fund, starting with the Selectmen's operating budget. Speaking on behalf of the Finance and Budget Committee, Jack Davis. You're coming back, right? I got you. All right.
Okay. Up above, slide 5. I'm Jack Davis, District 3, RTM Finance and Budget Chair. I move 2421B. Be it hereby resolved that the RTM of the Town of Darien hereby adopts the following appropriations for the July 4th, 2024 to June 30th, 2025 budget. Resolved that an appropriation of otherwise that was a pretty good budget cut. $53,584,247 is hereby made in the general fund for the Selectmen's operating budget. Do I have a second? I have Jenny. The Board of Selectmen budget is comprised of 3 basic areas: town operations, the library grant, and debt service. On debt service, when I look at this, the Board of Selectmen handled the first 2. The debt service is really determined by the Board of Finance, because they determine what our bonding is, how we structure our bonds. They do a very good job on it, but I wanted to say that it's in the Board of Selectmen budget, but it's really determined by the Board of Finance. This year, the town operations is currently at $36 million, an increase from $33 million in the prior year, or $2,752,000, representing an 8.17% increase. The library grant is from $4,393,539 to $4,534,235, representing a 3.2% increase. Debt service is moving from approximately $13 million down to $12.6 million, or a reduction of 2.75. Total operating budget for the town is up $2,535,977, or a 4.97% increase. I do want to point out something else which I'll address in one of our later slides when we're calculating the mill rate. When we look at the Board of Ed budget, which will be the next resolution, that's a net number because we give them a total appropriation and they have both expenses and revenues or reimbursement grants in that number. We do not have that in the Board of Selectmen budget. So when you look at the Board of Selectmen budget, this is their expenditures. We take the revenues from the town to reduce the total amount that needs to be raised from taxes, but on a later slide I'll be telling you what their real net increase is, just not now. I will cover 2 of these areas, and I'm going to leave. The committees will give reports, and then I'll come back and address the debt service and the library. But general overhead is up approximately, this is slide 6 from up above. General overhead is up 13.97%. The drivers are up, our healthcare 18%, and retirees healthcare. In addition, other drivers are pension costs for police and other unions. Understand, when we are trying to maintain our funding and our pension plans, we accrue that over a 5-year period. As you might recall, if you look further down on slide 6, you're seeing a transfer to the Great Island Management Fund. It's improperly listed on here. You might recall there are less tenants on Great Island, the largest being the Stables, which is no longer there. The Board of Selectmen is transferring $225,000 to the Great Island Management Fund to cover this lost revenue. As I will discuss later, the Great Island Management Fund covers the day-to-day operations and maintenance of Great Island, including the buildings. The total appropriation that we'll address in 24-21G is $400,000. At this time, I'm handing it back over to Seth, and I'll be back.
Speaking on behalf of Planning, Zoning, and Housing, Amy Zabatakis.
Hi there. Amy Zabatakis, Planning, Zoning, and Housing, District 5. March 7th, the Planning, Zoning, and Housing Committee held their regular meeting with 10 of the 14-person committee present, representing a quorum. Jeremy Ginsburg did present to us an overview of the zoning department and building department budgets and answer our questions. And at that time, the budget for the two departments was approved unanimously. The expenses for these two departments are relatively flat. The main change in the zoning department's budget is some increased personnel costs and increased costs for training, which is required by the state. In the building department, expenses are actually down slightly since some more senior staff has been replaced by junior staff. On the revenue side, planning and zoning is flat. There is an expected increase in the building department from the fees from all the new development that we have in town. So that is a very unexciting report, but we all agreed to unanimously approve the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Speaking on behalf of Public Health and Safety, Mac Patrick.
Hi, I'm Mac Patrick, District 5, Chair of Public Health and Safety. Our committee met in a special meeting on April 24th with 11 of 13 members present, and we had discussions of portions of the budget relating to police, fire, other public safety, and human services. The police budget has an overall increase of 5.9% with increased staffing, including one additional sworn officer and full realization of civilian dispatchers. The fire budget has an overall increase of 9%. The increased expenses include compliance with Connecticut Public Act number 22-139, having spare sets of turnout gear and more thorough inspections of gear to prevent service-related cancer, along with more deep cleaning. Hoarding and blight issues are expected to stabilize. It should be noted the budget for fire is less than $2 million versus $9.5 million for the police. The town greatly benefits financially from an all-volunteer fire department. The emergency medical service, or post-53, budget is up $17,000 or 10% and is related to increased expenditures on professional services. It is noteworthy that the high school staffing of post-53 is all volunteer and much of the operation is self-funded through donations. Town funding is $172,000 and the average response time with lights and sirens is 6.5 minutes. 1,900 projected annual incidents. It's about 4 or 5 a day. It's just terrific work. The human services for the town include human services and outside assistance, senior center, senior transportation, youth services, and the public health department. The overall budget is up 6.5% due to increased public health department, senior center, and youth service expenditures. The youth services budget is up due primarily to strong enrollments in various programs, with an anticipated 16% or $44,750 increase in revenue. Senior transportation revenue expenses are expected to balance. The Public Health Department's budget of $476,000 is expected to receive revenue of $152,000 from business licenses and permits. The Public Health and Safety Committee voted unanimously to approve this portion of the budget, and we ask that the full RTM do the same. Thank you. Thanks, Seth.
Thank you, Mac. Speaking on behalf of the Park and Recreation Committee, Adele Conniff.
Adele Conniff, District 3 Parks and Recreation Committee Chair. The Parks and Recreation portion of the Selectmen's operating budget is $1,792,971. Revenue, beach and court facilities, $580,000. Grounds, fields, and buildings, $37,300. Organized recreational events, $340,000. Revenue from beach parking permits, building and ground rentals, Weed Beach concession rental fees, seasonal fees from youth sports leagues, facility permits, boat permits, tennis court and pickleball reservations, kayak rentals, and community events is anticipated to be $957,300 in fiscal year 25. Fiscal year 24 revised budget was $1,007,000. The total anticipated revenues in beach and court facilities reflects a decrease in paddle play since the boom during COVID, reduction in paddle hut rentals, and pickleball fees, which were a new addition in fiscal year 23, which were budgeted too high for fiscal year 24. There was also a decrease in fiscal year 24 revenues in organized recreational events due to the Arts Center renting the Mather Center less. Program revenue and expenses are accounted for separately in the Recreation Program Fund. Expenses. The Parks and Recreation portion of the Selectmen's operating budget, $1,792,971, is a modest increase from the fiscal year 24 revised budget of $1,752,245. Administration expenses, $573,360. Beach and court expenses, $291,835. Grounds, fields, and facilities expenses, $339,975. Organized recreation and events expenses, $76,058. Recreation facilities maintenance expenses, $511,743,000. The Parks and Recreation maintenance personnel maintain approximately 210 acres of parkland, as well as Highland Farm and several other town properties. They also maintain the facilities at Weed Beach, Pear Tree Beach, Cherry Lawn Park, McGuan Park, Baker Park, Selleck's Woods and Woodland Park Nature Preserves, and Town Hall and Holohan Fields. The Parks and Recreation Department is also responsible for town organized programs and events open to the public, which are operated on a self-sustaining basis. There were a few changes in the fiscal year 25 Parks and Recreation budget from the fiscal year 24 budget. The park monitor was removed from the security services budget as it was felt it was no longer needed post-COVID. The fiscal year 25 budget includes the addition of a new payment plan from ActiveNet of a one-time annual fee of $40,000, which they discounted by $10,000, and reduced the credit card fees from 3.374% to 3%. With this plan, we no longer have staff transactional fees on cash, credit card, or check payments. The 3-year plan will save the town approximately $12,000 per year. The budget also includes an increase of $10,000 for invasive plant removal, a priority of the Parks and Recreation Commission. The Parks and Recreation Committee followed the budget process beginning in 2023 as the department and the commission put together this budget. Pam Geary, Parks and Recreation Department Director, reviewed the commission's proposed budget with our committee in January. We appreciate all the help the town and Parks and Recreation Departments and the commission gave us as the budget process moved from commission through town administrator, board of selectmen, and board of finance. Lastly, we join with our finance and budget counterparts and board of finance designated members to seek answers for their remaining Parks and Recreation budget questions. And it was a thorough process. The RTM Parks and Recreation Committee met on April 10th with 11 members participating, 9 in person and 2 members on cell phones, constituting a quorum, and voted 10 members in favor and 1 member opposed in support of the Parks and Recreation portion of the 24-25 Selectmen's operating budget, revenue and expenses. The 1 member opposed voted against the budget to voice their frustration with the lack of progress on the Pear Tree Beach parking lot dredging boat ramp project. The Parks and Recreation Committee encourages the RTM to support this budget. We also follow some other commissions and committees, and so I'll just give a brief update on that. The RTM Parks and Recreation Committee also follows the Darien Beautification Commission, Monuments and Ceremonies Commission, and Darien Harbor Master. The fiscal year 25 budgets of these town community groups remain largely unchanged from their fiscal year 24 budgets, with the exception that the Beautification Commission budget includes purchase of new flags for lampposts downtown.
Thank you, Adele. Speaking on behalf of Public Works, Mark Adeletta.
Thank you, Seth. At our special session held on May 8th with 10 of 15 members present, the Public Works Committee considered and voted unanimously to approve Resolution 24-21B, the Selectmen's operating budget. In general, most line items of town expenditures remain consistent with the prior year budgets. The effect of inflation is less in 2025 budget than it was in 2024. Overall, the results in the 2025 budget is in line with the 2024, with most operational activities needed by the town. There is, however, one major exception. For fiscal year 2025, there will be a substantial increase in the cost of disposal for municipal solid waste, aka MSW, and recyclables, due to the expiration of the town contract with Wind Waste in July 1 of 2024. Wind Waste is the contractor that runs our transfer station here in town. The cost for disposal of waste and recyclables will increase substantially under the upcoming new contract, which is not yet approved. It's projected the increase year on year will be as much as 33%. Recyclable waste, which has been a net revenue producer in the past, is expected to cost in the vicinity of $30 a ton, including a net positive effect of any paper quality rebates that we're able to realize. In anticipation of the increased cost, resident permit pricing has already increased, and tipping fees for the recyclables will increase to $75 a ton. This is from $0 in the past. As a result, the overall base revenues are up 27%, substantially offsetting the projected cost increase associated with the expected new contract. Further, while the new wind waste contract is not yet executed, there is expected to be some improvement versus the budget. In addition, those of you who use the transfer station know that the compactor is not working and has not been working for some time. Wind Waste is responsible for the compactor and have been holding off doing anything major until this contract status is known. A capital outlay for these upgrades is expected to be included as part of the upcoming contract. In the process of the budget review, the town administrator reduced an expenditure for the Public Works Department marginally and only in situations where the source of funds to accomplish the mission of the Public Works was secure outside of the annual operating and capital budgets. For example, the front-end loader I talked about earlier that was moved, and the sidewalk rehabilitation fund carryover, which I also noted earlier. The Selectmen adjusted the Public Works budget only for the increasing of the tipping fees, which I just mentioned, and the Board of Finance did not make any major adjustments either. A few other line items worth noting here before we wrap up. There's a seasonal increase associated with using the new minimum hourly wage. There's a software line item, which is really just a shuffle from software to a GPS, from software GPS to the telecommunications line item. There's a $10,000 reduction to tree maintenance. There's a slight increase related to potable water, reduction related to potable water. There is a slight decrease associated with fuel rate. There's an increase of 18% on the uniform line item. There's a $5,000 reduction in that the loader tires are not in this year's budget. I think that line item goes in and out every 2 years. Let's see, there's a professional services increase related to increase in scale software and also with credit card charges. There's an increase related to the hazardous waste disposal per unit charge associated with us running that program, or the town running that program. And the number of FTEs in the budget is flat. I emphasize this tight budget is accomplished while the DPW continues to make meaningful and measurable improvement in the services provided to the town with the same level of high-quality personnel and resources year after year. We should all be grateful to Ed and the team in the Public Works Department. The Public Works Committee appreciates the continued high level of services and asks that you vote yes and ratify this item. And before I step down, I'd like to thank a couple of individuals on the committee who contributed heavily to this report, Jeff Krause and also Rolf Oben, for their contributions. A lot of what I read is actually their material, so thank you. And I thank the whole committee for their effort throughout the year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Now to wrap up on this one. Again, Finance and Budget, Jack Davis.
I'm not introducing myself, you know who I am. A couple of things I did want to point out overall on the budget before I go to the library. During the course of the year, the town did a salary study, and many of our employees have now market rates for what they're being paid for the work that they're being done. And while we have great elected people in town, including everyone in this body, it's the people that work in town hall and the people that work at the transfer station and elsewhere that make this town run well, and it runs well. And so having them have fair pay is a wonderful thing to have. The other thing is that there's only a minor change in the total FTEs for the Board of Selectmen. There's a new half body for policemen, but emergency management offsets that. And there's a slight addition to the Finance Department. I said this at the Board of Selectmen meeting. The Finance Department runs a $50 to $100 million business with 4 people. One does payroll, one does accounts payable, and the other 2 do a slew of reports that virtually all of us rely on. So adding somebody else to help them out is long overdue in F&B's opinion. Now we can go to slide 8. I think that may do well when I go into town hall next time. But the slide 8, I'm sorry, slide 7, the library budget. Library budget has increased by 3.2%. There's a 0.2 FTE net addition for a part-time individual to ensure appropriate coverage at the teen lounge and the teen study space during peak times. Salaries continue to be competitive in the overall market. There are a 4% increase in health care, a almost 2% increase in retirement, and a 29% increase in life insurance, but a decrease in other property and liability insurances. Maintenance is down, but there are increases in electric, gas, and fuel of about 4.3%, and water and sewer 15%. However, the library continues to look for efficiencies running their building, and they do a very good job. Slide 8, debt service. The first slide shows a breakdown of debt service between the schools, the town, and the sewer authority. Only the town can issue debt. The sewer authority is a self-contained fund where those who are hooked up to the sewer are responsible for paying the debt. No taxpayer funds are used for that purpose. Slide 9 shows the debt over the next several years. However, you can see that between fiscal year 25 and fiscal year 29, the town will pay down approximately $24 million of debt, and that counts of what is issued now. As of today, the town will have a little over $99 million in authorized but unissued debt as of July 1st, 2024. We haven't finished the year, so that could possibly increase. Before I go on to give our final report, I've been asked to cover one other thing based upon conversations that were done during the course of this budget season. When we approve a bonding resolution, there are two parts to it. That's why we always say we are approving the appropriation and the bonding, which is our funding. They're different. They have to equal, but they're different. So, as I mentioned, every expense that's paid needs an appropriation approved for those expenses to be paid. Now, if we're in a case where we're building a school and we're getting money back from the state on a state grant, that doesn't reduce the amount that we're paying out or our expenditures. They are the same. What it reduces is the amount that we need to fund by issuing debt. And when we authorize, we just did $101 million for the HHR project, we do not go into the market and ask for the debt for the full amount. We anticipate what we're going to be spending over the next 9 to 12 months. We go out and bond that to fund that building that needs to be done. At the same time, the building committees are submitting expenses to the state, and we get reimbursement. Those reimbursements are used for the next tranche of what we're going to do. Monies that we get back from the state are restricted funds. And if I don't say this right, Jenny's going to correct me. It's restricted funds. They cannot be used for operations. If there is an excess, it goes back to the general fund. And as I've said several times today, general fund funds cannot be used to budget operations. So there seems to be some confusion on that. At times, we do not issue debt. So I'm going to pick on the Hanson Road Bridge. Approximately $2 million we authorized for the appropriation. We also authorized bonding for $2 million. We're anticipating that the state's going to return 50% of what we actually spend. In order to do the project, we're actually borrowing money from the general fund from that project. And again, each one of these things have its own project number. So we borrow money from the general fund. We submit the money to the state. The state finally tells us how much they are going to give us back. And the net difference between what we actually spent and what the state gave us back is the amount that will eventually be bonded. And when we get those funds, we repay our debt to the general fund. It is important to understand that these are different silos. And just because we're getting state grants on a building fund for our schools doesn't mean that we can take it and offset a Board of Ed operating budget. And so that's been some confusion throughout this budget process. I apologize if I'm talking about this, but I do want to let you know that Seth has told me he is going to give a quiz on all this at the end So at least be a little bit prepared.
Just keeping you alert.
The RTM Finance and Budget Committee voted unanimously in favor of this resolution and recommends the same to the full RTM. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jack. Okay, town officials, comments? The body, any comments? Elected officials, electors of the town? Okay, looks like we're ready to vote. All those in favor, please rise. The results on 24-21, 73 in favor, 2 noes, 1 abstention. 24-21 passes. No votes, please. Abstentions? Okay, while we're putting that together, I'll move on to the education operating budget. Speaking on behalf of the Education Committee, Ed Washeka.
Thanks. I'm Ed Washeka, District 3, and Chair of the Education Committee. I move the resolution 24-21C. Do I have a second? Thank you, Adele. With no objection, I'll waive the reading of the resolution to approve $119,864,475 for the Board of Education's operating budget for fiscal year 24-25. This year's budget process has been interesting. To clarify what we are doing, we are approving the operating budget that the Board of Finance has set for the Board of Education. That figure is $2 million less than what the Board of Education approved and requested from the Board of Finance. Assuming we approve the 119.9, the Board of Ed is now tasked with figuring out specifically how they are allocating these funds. As this is a net number after revenue and excess cost reimbursement, the Board of Education may also consider other revenue enhancements as well. We will talk about process a bit and how we got here. But as others have said, I think it was Mark Twain, it is what it is. Our option now is to approve it, cut it further, or reject it. If we reject it, the Board of Ed would be allotted the same amount it spent last year. Turning to some figures, the budget net after, and I don't have slides, the budget net after revenue and excess cost reimbursements was $106.6 million in fiscal year 22, $110.6 in 23, $114.4 in 24. The Board of Ed approved budget of $121.9 was reduced by $2 million from the Board of Finance, so the net increase was 4.7%. The Board of Ed budget delivered to the Board of Finance showed a requested increase of about 6.5%, with some efficiencies and reductions having a small offset to special ed cost increases and contractual increases to salaries and benefits. Now, before it was the Board of Ed budget, it was the administration budget. The administration budget was also a significant increase, but as part of the process, the Board of Ed ended up rejecting a number of administration changes that were driven by enrollment reductions, and ended up increasing the budget beyond what the administration had itself requested, to that 6.5% figure that went to the Board of Finance. Over the last 9 years, final town approved budgets have increased between 2% and 4% per year, with an average of 2.9%. Our average goes to 3.1% with the Board of Finance number in this period. DIRG budgets this year average an increase of 5.3%, with Weston at 2.9 and Westport at 8.1. Those are Board of Ed approved numbers, not RTM approved numbers. It's worth noting that our past budgets generally included return of funds, but due to modifying the practice of budget control, the district runs tighter and requests funds when needed, as it's doing now. Enrollment is basically flat year on year. It's projected to increase just over 2% over the current level in the coming years. Class size guidelines were reviewed by the board last year. These guidelines drove a lot of debate due to enrollment reductions at Middlesex, with the administration wanting to reduce staffing to account for these enrollment reductions, and many public commenters, some education committee members, and a majority of the Board of Education not wanting to do that. I'm not going into detail on what's in the budget, given the Board of Education has to prioritize and make decisions. The administration has provided suggestions as to how to live with that $2 million Board of Finance reduction, as well as deal with the current additional shortfall recently identified. The Board of Education has further meetings planned, but so far most members of the public and of the Board of Ed have just said what they didn't like about the administration's plans. We've not heard many people say what they would do instead to work within the budget level we are here to approve tonight. In some respect, that has made our committee work easier. Ordinarily, we would debate the merits of this versus that. At the moment, we don't know what this or that will be. That's up to the Board of Education now. All we have to do is approve a number. Let me close by sharing a few facts. Per pupil expenditures are just over $24,000 per student. This is in line with our DIRG and allows us to deliver a superb school system to residents. This body has authorized an enormous sum to rebuild Ox Ridge and renovate Holmes, Hindley, and Royal. Staff headcount is up 5%, 39 positions, from fiscal year 22, while enrollment is down 3.6%, or 172 students. Some of these headcount changes are due to insourcing, like the drivers, or adding school security officers for enhanced security, but we've also outsourced other positions, like food service. Teacher count is up 1% against an enrollment drop of 3.6%. Special ed paraprofessionals, which are a large chunk of staff and are driven by IEP growth, are up 25%. If IEPs continue to grow at this rate, we can't be surprised if it begins to crowd out other offerings or if we will have to look at yet higher taxes and user fees. We are on track to face higher costs beyond this budget. Next year, we can again expect a difficult budget discussion. We encourage the board to look for revenue sources, and we are heartened that at least some members appear interested to explore sponsorship opportunities that may alleviate financial pressure. And now we have to vote. We were uniformly unhappy with the process, but on May 6th, the committee, with 8 of 14 members present, voted 7 in favor, 0 opposed, and with 1 abstention to support the Board of Finance approved budget, and we urge the RTM to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Speaking on behalf of the Finance and Budget Committee, Jack Davis.
For the group up above, we're on slide 10. I'm Jack Davis, District 3, RTM Finance and Budget Chair. There's not much more I can really add to what Ed has said. We understood what the drivers were coming into this year's budget: healthcare, salaries, which represent 65% of the budget, but we voted for those salary increases here. Well, we voted not to reject them, but essentially we approved them. Transportation, which I mentioned, was up 12%, and then their transportation initiative on special ed is reducing that, so it won't have a full effect. There are some additional outplacements, but that's part of their core business, is meeting the needs of the students. Pension plans are up. That's their drivers. Board of Finance reduced their increase, and now it sits with the Board of Ed to get to work and figure out what their budget is going to be. And one other thing I do want to say, in this compliment to Rich Rudel and his team. If you look at the Board of Ed budget book, it's about this thick. I would have brought it here, but it's too heavy. And there's about 200 line items for about 25 different cost centers. And throughout the course of the year, while there's some minor adjustments going on, and in reality, those are mere placeholders because the only thing we're doing is giving them a full appropriation, the amount of accuracy at the end of the year of what those numbers come in out is rather outstanding. So I, at least from an F&B perspective and working with Rich, want to thank him and his team for the work that they do. Also, as Ed said, in the past we've done what is growth in their core and what is increases in their core and what's increases in new initiatives that are being done. I don't know what the final budget is, so we're not doing that this year. F&B voted unanimously in favor of the Board of Ed budget and recommends the same to the full RTM. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Comments from other committees? Town officials? The body? I see none. Electors of the town? Don't see any. Yes, miss? If you just give your name and address and keep it to 2 minutes, thank you very much.
My name is Luz Elena Bueno and I live at 123 Hoyt Street. My grandfather left Paris in 1939 and took refuge in Cali, Colombia, South America, a city nobody would know if it wasn't for the TV show Narcos. He provided the land and funding for a French school, one of the first schools outside France that became part of the French public school system outside of a capital city. It was not free, but families paid very little, which allowed lower to middle income kids to be there. 10% of my classmates were violently killed during the drug war that Narcos depicts so well. 15% now hold high executive positions. 100%. All of them did better than their parents. When I went there in 1980s, I had a computer class. We learned how to code to solve math problems in Pascal, which was a real nightmare, but it shaped our brains to understand technology. Almost 4 decades later, here in Darien, kids don't have a computer class as part of their curriculum. In Texas, kids have a computer class every day, every single day. This is how far behind we are. Does anyone here even wonders why so many kids in Darien don't do better than their parents? It should be clear to everyone that any increase in the budget below inflation is really a cut, and the kids pay for it. Inflation reached its highest level in over 40 years in 2022, with a 7.1% increase, and the school budget was only increased by 4%. That was a 3.1% effective cut on the budget for education in Darien. The fact is, as per the federal government, excluding housing, we need $121 today to buy what we bought with $100 in 2020. But our schools are not providing the same services because we had to add cost for COVID, for mental health crisis that followed COVID. In addition to the increase of cost associated with inflation like healthcare premiums, transportation, etc. As a result, we have had to reduce the quality of the education, firing teachers, and haven't had added any programs to the school, no programs added. Starting this year, with this budget you are voting on today, every single kid will have to pay to play sports in Darien. And the more they play, the more they pay. I ask you tonight to do the right thing and fund our schools, but also understand that we are in an inflationary environment. And we are due for a major increase in the budget for the Board of Education next year if we want to stay competitive. Because now that so many people only go to New York for a few times a week, we are competing head-to-head with all the towns north of us, and they have adjusted their budget to inflation. Darien is one of the last ones that have not. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other electors? Looks like we're ready to vote. Yes, Clara.
Hi, I'm Clara Sartori, District 2. I just wanted to point out that the person who just spoke commented that pay-to-play would be going into effect, and I don't think the Board of Ed has voted on that yet, so it's a little bit of an inaccuracy there. Thank you.
Ready to vote? Okay, all in favor, please rise.
I'm going to introduce this, I'm going to give my report, and then I need you to say we're doing this for reclamation. And then I'll go right into the next one.
Which? No, wait, you're gonna do this first? That's just math.
Yeah, right, that's why I'm saying it. And so we do it.
So you're just gonna move it, and then we'll say, okay, ready to vote? Let's go.
Basically, yeah, yeah.
The same way with the mill rate, right?
No, the mill rate, I have a lot of detail.
Okay, all right. Okay, well, wink at me when you're done with that, we'll do that, okay?
You're kidding, that's why everyone's here. The mill rate.
I'm sorry, I didn't ask for noes and abstentions, but everybody seems to have collected that. The results are 24-21B, 74 in favor, 1 no, 1 abstention. Okay, we're ready to move on to the total appropriations in the general fund. Speaking on behalf of F&B, Jack Davis.
I'm Jack Davis, District 3, RTM, Finance and Budget Committee Chair. I move 24-21D, resolve that the above appropriations totaling $173,448,722 are for the purpose of meeting the expenses of the town of Darien for the fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2024 and ending June 30th, 2025, as shown by this budget this day approved. Do I have a second? I have Jenny. This resolution is here to prove that the town can actually add 2421B and 2421C. We can add. We voted unanimously at the RTM, and Seth is going to take it from here.
Committee comments? Comments from town officials?
Let's just stack them.
Comments from the body? Comments from electors of the town? I see none. Looks like we're ready to vote.
Seth, do you want the results of C or?
No, we're going to do this one.
No, I'll get there. I'm watching. All in favor, please rise.
You could have done acclamation. That's nice.
Here, let me give them the results of this one.
Okay.
Results 24-21C, 74 in favor, 1 no, 1 abstention. 24-21 passes. No votes, please. Abstentions, I see none. Jack will continue.
Well, this is what everybody is really here for, right? It's the mill rate. I'm Jack Davis, District 3, RTM Finance and Budget Chair. I move 2421. Can I borrow your resolution? The big one.
That one? Oh, is that what you needed, or do you need this?
I need the final one that... May have it up above. Hold on. Sorry, do you have... Okay, I apologize. Yes. Sorry about that. It's back in the, over there as I'm going through. I'm moving 2421E. Resolved that a tax of 14.69 mils is hereby levied upon the last complete grand list of the town with a total net assessment value of $11,145,599,944 on the property as of October 1st, 2023, payable in 2 equal semi-annual installments, the first installment to become due and payable on July 1st, 2024, and the second installment to become due and payable on July 1st, 2025, provided, however, that 1, any taxpayer may pay both of said installments on July 1st, 2024. 2, the personal property tax on motor vehicles in said town shall become due and payable in one single installment on July 1st, 2024. 3, any property tax in the amount not in excess of $100 shall become due and payable in one single installment on July 1st, 2024. Thank you. Go to slide 11. I want to spend some time on the grand list and how we got to our mill rate. If you go on slide 11, you're going to see that residential properties, and this is after the Board of Assessment Appeals, increased by 27%. Now, if you look at this slide, you're seeing one says 22 and the other says 23, even though we're figuring out our taxes for fiscal year 25. That's because the grand list is determined on October 1st of... That was my heart beating. That's because the assessment is determined in 2023, not, and it's applied to the following year. You also see that commercial real estate went up by a lesser amount. If you remember, back a couple of meetings ago, we gave our tax assessor the right to waive certain penalties for not providing a report to them on an annual basis. Why? Because commercial property has a new assessed value every year. That's part of the reason why their increase is lower than ours. Our last increase was 5 years ago. Theirs is every year. In addition, we did see during the pandemic, as used cars were more expensive, a rise in some of our used car rates. You might have noticed that your car went up. The other thing I do want to say is, if there's improvements to your property, I found this to be very interesting. So let's say in 2023, you put in a new kitchen, and it cost you $50,000. Your new assessment isn't increased by the $50,000. What they do is go back to the last year of assessment, which in this particular case is 2018, and determine what the value of that new kitchen would be in that year, even though you paid more than that. Then when this new assessment comes, you're getting the value of what that kitchen is now. There are also some personal properties here. If we go to page 12, we start with the grand list of $11,114 million plus change. But there's adjustments to that. Veterans exceptions, volunteer exceptions, and other type of exceptions, elderly exceptions and other things that reduce the amount of the grand list of what people are paying on. And so we get to an adjusted grand list amount, which in this particular case is $11,073 million plus change. Then, as I mentioned before, our taxpayers pay their taxes. That's a very good thing. But we look, and the Board of Finance looks over the last 5 years of what our collection rate is, determines the average, and then we reduce it by 25 basis points to estimate what the collection rate is for the coming year, because that's what we're going to base our taxes on. We're not anticipating we're going to get 100%, because otherwise we would have deficits in our operating budgets and we'd be a shortfall. So that this year, the 5-year collection rate, less the 25 basis points, is 99.48%. All right, now, just doing quick math, it says that the 5-year rate is someplace in the neighborhood of close to 99.8%, which is really great. Keep on paying, taxpayers. That gives us to an adjusted grand list, which is $11,016 million. And that's the amount that we do our calculations on. Because I know that people always go, oh, here's the grand list, I'm doing this, and it doesn't work out. You need all these adjustments to get it there. Now, we do our taxes in 2 different ways. The first one is we determine what we need to fund our operating budgets. And that includes the town, library, debt service, and education. And that was D that we just voted on, which is $173,448,000 plus change. We then take our revenue away from that. Remember I said that if you look at net before, that the town, the 36 million that they had, is not net of this 13 million revenue. Revenue is up this year, primarily due to an increase in what we're anticipating to earn in investment income, as well as recording certain other revenues that we're going to get from the state that we now have a better feel for. That says the amount that we need to raise from taxes is $159,466,000 and change. That's a 4% increase in expenses. When I go back to the adjusted grand list, that comes out to a 14.48 for the amount to be raised through taxes to go into the general fund. We're going to do the same thing for capital. I do want to say something. You're going to see that we didn't calculate what the difference is on the mill rate from the prior rate of 17 versus the 14, because it doesn't really matter. We don't control the denominator. That's market driven. The important number that we do control and that the boards control is what the increase in our operating expenses are. And this year it's 4%. That's after the other things that we've done in increase in revenues. We do the same thing for capital, but there's certain adjustments for capital. The combined capital from the two, from the town and the Board of Ed, is $4.2 million. That's a reduction of almost $500,000 in capital from the prior year. We have revenues that go in there. Part of that is the loaf that I mentioned that we did that other thing for, which is about $100,000. But the amount of money that we're allocating from unassigned fund balance is down about 37% of what we did the prior year. It's going from 2.6 million to 1.671 million. That means that this year, the amount that we have to raise for capital to be put into the reserve fund for capital non-recurring expenditures is $2.2 million, resulting in an increase of 28%. If you go to the next slide, 15, it does a summary. And that summary shows that adds up to how we got to 14.16. and that the overall tax increase, based upon what we're funding through capital and operations, is 4.29%. Now, I did have somebody ask that, our taxes are going to go down because the mill rate went down. Well, unless you're one of the 2 people in town that own an Austin Martin, you're not going to see significant. Your car taxes are going down because that's just a straight rate. But for real estate, remember, most of those properties from that prior chart went up. And so everybody asks, and we're going to slide 16, what does this mean to my taxes? So I'm going to give you the formula. The formula is pretty simple. You put your old assessment in one column, and you put your new assessment in the other. In this particular case, I used the average amount of a residential increase to go and see what it was. You divide the assessments by 1,000, you come to a number. On the old assessment, you multiply times 17.61. On the new one, 14.69. That will give you your new taxes, or close enough. So on the average increase in taxes on real estate, while I mentioned that our taxes went up by 4.29, the average tax will go up by 6% this year. And if you're like me, whose house went up by 32, we're seeing about a 10 to 12% increase in our taxes. So you can use this to calculate what your mill rate is. I do it for the general public also. Anyway, F&B voted to approve the mill rate and recommends the same to the full RTM. Thank you.
Anybody like to step up and do that calculation for us? Never mind, never mind. Okay, any further comments from committees, town officials, RTM body, electors of the town? Looks like we're ready to vote. All those in favor, please rise. Opposed? And abstentions? Okay. While we're gathering all that, I'll keep moving. Item 24D, total appropriation, 73 in favor, 1 no, 1 abstention. 24D passes. We now move on to authorizing the borrowing of up to $5 million. Again, speaking for Finance and Budget, Jack Davis.
I'm Jack Davis, District 3, Chair of the RTM Finance and Budget Committee. I move Section F of the RTM Resolution 2421, authorizing and approving $5 million of borrowing. Is there a second? I have Clara. I will waive the reading of the resolution if there's no objection. This authorization is part of an annual budget resolution. It authorizes the town to issue short-term tax anticipation borrowings up to $5 million without the need of RTM approval. This allows the town to fund the budget in the event there is a timing difference between tax collections and expenditure. Although the town has not needed to utilize this authority in recent history, it gives them the necessary flexibility. Now, it's interesting that it's $5 million. We moved it up to 10 during the pandemic. It probably should be more than that, and we'll raise that to the Board of Finance in later years. The committee met on April 24th, 2024, where the committee voted unanimously to approve and recommends the same to the full RTM.
Okay, any other committees wish to speak? Town officials, members of the body, electors of the town. I see none. Looks like you're ready to vote. All those in favor, please rise. The results of 24-E on the mill rate, 72 in favor, 1 no, 1 abstention. The item passes. Opposed? Abstentions? Seeing none. Okay, now we'll move on to other appropriations. Speaking on behalf of the Finance and Budget Committee, who will cover the whole thing, and then we'll have individuals speak on the different sections, sewer and parking lot, et cetera. So, Jack Davis for F&B.
We are on the final slide, at least for the budget, which is slide 17. I'm Jack Davis, District 3, RTM Finance and Budget Chair. I move 2421G. Do I have a second? I'll take the second over there. I will waive the reading of the resolution if there's no objections. All expenditures and appropriations need to be approved. This resolution does such for the funds that are listed here. All are self-contained funds except for the Great Island Management Fund. F&B will report on that. As we already mentioned, this fund is handled for the day-to-day funds for the operations of Great Islands, including building. It is funded by the property's current rented properties, as well as the transfer made from the Board of Selectmen. Those leases, if you recall, we all approved, is due to be renewed sometime in 2026. This fund is separate from other work being done at Great Island. It does not include remediation, access, or the master plan. The other committees will report on this, but F&B met on the 24th of April and voted unanimously to approve this resolution. Thank you.
Okay, to report on the Public Works sections of these other appropriations, Mark Adeletta from Public Works.
Thank you, Seth. At the special session held on May 8th with 11 to 15 members present, the Public Works Committee considered and voted unanimously to recommend the approval to the full RTM of the appropriation for the Sewer Operations Fund, the Sewer Assessment Fund, the Sewer Capital Fund, the Parking Lot Administration Fund, and the Parking Lot Capital Fund. With regard to the sewer funds, the sewer operations and sewer capital funds are used to account for activities related to the operation, maintenance, and improvement of the town sewer system. Appropriation in the Sewer Operations Fund are used to maintain, repair, and operate the 81 miles of sewer mains and 14 pump stations. The budget assumes a 4% increase in fees to Stamford, resulting in a 5.4% increase overall. The Sewer Capital Fund budget proposes to continue to fund for mostly ongoing equipment and pump replacements. Root control, the DPW does about 8 miles of state-required work on the sanitary sewer and reports to the state. That's about 10% of the total system every year. In addition, Stamford recently had a $3 million capital improvement for the replacement of pipe main failure. They paid for it from their capital reserve. Darien is obligated to reimburse Stamford for its pro rata share, or 15%, or $450,000. The Sewer Commission has started to pay down that charge. When the new sewer rates are calculated, it is probable the residents with sewer service will incur a rate increase. Recall that the cost of the Darien sewer system is separate from the town assets and services reflected in the property taxes Jack just described. With regard to the parking funds, the parking operations and parking capital funds are used to account for the activities related to the operation, maintenance, improvement of the parking facilities located at or on state property at the Darien and Norotan Railroad stations, as well as Mechanic Street. The parking operation fund is supported by the parking permits, daily parking fees, and other parking-related revenues. All operating and capital expenses the town incurs are charged to these funds. No tax impact associated with those. The one line item worth noting in that budget is the town railroad parking usage is up, and the parking ranger has been added for reflecting a full year expense versus a partial year last year for the second ranger that was added. The Public Works Committee asks you vote yes and ratify this item covering these 5 funds. Thank you.
Speaking on the Recreation Program Fund, Adele Coniff, Park and Recreation Committee.
Appropriation for the Recreation Fund Program Fund, $1,400,000. This fund has been established to identify the actual revenues and expenses that result from the various programs and special activities run by the Parks and Recreation Department. Program revenue and instructor expenditures will be recorded in this fund. Program fees are designed to fully cover the cost of running each program. Revenue and excessive expenditures will be transferred to the general fund. The 2024-25 Recreation Programs Fund projected revenue budget remains the same as the revised 2023-24 budget, $1,400,000. The actual 22-23 revenue was $1,364,813. The 24-25 expenditure budget is $1,120,000. The 22-23 actual expenditure was $1,099,866. The difference between revenues and expenses is transferred to the general fund. The 22-23 budget transferred $264,947. Based on the 24-25 budgets, $280,000 is expected to be transferred to the general fund. The Parks and Recreation Department offers an array of activities for both youth and adults. Participation continues to be strong. Classes range from soccer for 2- and 3-year-olds, Grit Ninja for 5 to 11-year-olds, fencing and woodworking, mad science, yoga, and ukulele lessons to traditional sports summer camps. Adults can enjoy workout classes, flow yoga, drop-in volleyball, and pickleball and tennis lessons. Some spring program highlights: the new martial arts program sold out, all pickleball lessons and leagues sold out, Sprout Chef's April break camp sold out, USA Sports sold out, and Yin Yoga sold out. The RTM Parks and Recreation Committee met on April 10th with 11 of 17 members present, 9 in person and 2 on cell phones, constituting a quorum, and voted 10 members in favor and 1 member opposed to the 24-25 appropriation for the Recreation Program Fund. The 1 member voting in opposition was voicing their frustration for the lack of progress on the Pear Tree Beach parking lot dredging boat ramp project. The committee encourages the RTM to support the $1,400,000 appropriation for the Recreation Program Fund. Thank you.
Thank you, Adele. Speaking on the Great Island Management Fund, you covered that? Okay. You covered it. Good. All right. Comments from other committees? Town officials? The body? Electors of the town? Yes, I'm sorry. I didn't see you there. Great. Liz?
I know it's late, nobody wants. Liz Bacon, District 2. I had a question about this parking lot. Are we talking about train parking lots? Are we talking about parking lots that are throughout the town? Which parking lots are affected by these capital funds? Yeah.
Oh, all right.
One of the great joys
Kate
of my
Bush.
life is Kate Bush, Town Administrator. The greatest joy is managing the parking lots.
I bet.
This fund is the state-owned one, so that is Norotan, both sides. It's the Mechanic Street lot, it's the Leroy East, and the two Squab Lane, and the two on either side of the station, not Leroy West, we own Leroy West, and Tokenique Road.
So these are all lots that support people who are basically taking the trains?
Pretty much, yes.
Okay, okay. They don't have anything to do with what's being dug in town and the general parking lots that are increasingly reserved for people doing business?
So the Center Street lots, both Center Street South and North, are town-owned. The majority of the one like behind CVS is town-owned. There is a portion of that that is privately owned. That's where you're seeing those increasing reservations for people. And we don't control that because we don't own them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Kate.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions from the body? Electors of the town? Looks like we're ready to vote. All those in favor, please rise. Results from 24-21F, 71 in favor, 1 no, 3 abstentions. The item passes. No votes, please. Abstentions? Okay. Looks like we're ready to move on to the next item. This is appropriation of $144.9 million for refunding of certain of the town bonds. Speaking on behalf of the Finance and Budget Committee, Jack Davis.
I'm Jack Davis, F&B Budget Chair from District 3. I thought I might change it on my last one. I move Resolution 2422 appropriating $141,940,000 to refund certain of the town's outstanding bonds and authorizing the issuance of refunding bonds or amounts available in unassigned fund balance to finance such appropriation. Do I have a second? I have Amy. If there's no objection, I waive the reading of resolution, and thank you because that one is really long. We do this resolution every year. The resolution authorizes the town to refund and authorize the issuance of refunding bonds or amounts available in unassigned fund balance to refinance such appropriations. The authorization is for the $144,940,000. Such refinancing is for the town's general obligation bonds, including but not limited to those bonds issued in 2016, 2017, 2019, 2020, 2022, 2023, and 2024. Together with the costs including issuance, but not limited to any applicable consultant fees, legal fees, trustee and escrow agent fees, investment fees, verification fees, underwriting fees, there were a lot of fees, and other financing and transactional costs and other expenses related to the payment or redemption of such bonds for the purposes. Upon approving this resolution, any authorization but unissued portions of previous refunding authorizations are rescinded and null and void. I want to thank everyone who's still here. I did miss the over-under. I was hoping for 10. But upon addressing this resolution, our fiscal year 2024-2025 budget resolutions are completed. The Finance and Budget Committee would like to thank all of those who participated on your committees and reports that were made, and thank you for a job well done. We voted unanimously in favor of this resolution and recommends the same to the full RTM. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack.
I worked for some Fortune 200 companies and sat through a few budget meetings, and I don't think I heard any that were as sharp as that. So nice going, Jack. Well put together and well presented. Any other committees? Okay. I don't see any town officials. Town officials? Okay. Members of the body, comments, electors of the town. Looks like we're ready to vote. All those in favor, please rise. The results of 2421G, 72 in favor, 1 no, 1 abstention. The item passes. No votes, please. Abstentions? Okay, we'll move on to the next item. Resolution regarding early voting locations. Speaking on behalf of TGSNA, Frank Kemp.
One more short resolution and we can go home. My name is Frank Kemp, District 4, Chairman of the RTM Government Structure and Administration Committee. I move RTM Resolution 24-23, a resolution of the representative town meeting of the town of Darien for early voting pursuant to Public Act 23-5. Is there a second? Thank you, Rolf. Do I have a motion to waive the reading of the resolution? Thank you. On Monday, May 13th, 2024, TGSNA committee met to discuss this resolution that has been brought forward by the registrars of voters. If this resolution appears to be the same as we voted on in January, that's correct. That was Resolution 24-3, which designated Town Hall as a sole location for early voting in Darien. At the time, we anticipated that this action would suffice for the presidential preference primary, the August primary, and the November general election. However, the Secretary of State has requested that all municipalities reaffirm their arrangements for early voting for the August primary. Accordingly, Town Council has prepared this resolution, 24-23, to confirm the commitment to early voting locations. We should note that the final phrase on this resolution, which is the only difference from the one presented in January, is this resolution is applicable to all elections held within the town through December 31st, 2024. It's anticipated that this phrase will eliminate the need to consider this matter again. However, if the Secretary of State requests that we do take it up again, we'll need to do it in our September meeting. After reviewing this background material, the TGSNA committee unanimously approved Resolution 24-23 and recommended its approval for the full RTM this evening.
Thank you, Frank. Any other remarks from other committees? Town officials? Members of the body? See none. Electors of the town? Looks like we're ready to vote. All in favor, please rise. Results of 24-22 refunding. Got to add these. 27, 8 is 15, 4 is 19, and 1 is 20. 3 and 2 is 5, 6, 70 in favor, no noes, 2 abstentions. Item 24-22 passes. Please, no votes, please. Abstentions, and don't leave until we get the results of this one. Now they're pretty much hanging here. Say again? Oh, aren't you nice? Thank you. Oh, wait a minute.
So that was smart. I put it in your pocket and then you don't have to.
Well, the 3-0 lead now, I think.
No, we're good.
We're kind of waiting. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Please wait till we get the results of the last total.
Vote with our feet.
I'm going to vote with my feet.
All right, great to see you. See you soon. Giant child. He's playing t-ball on weekends.
Have we got the total on the last one? Because then I can get a motion to adjourn.
Okay. All right, Seth. Okay. I don't think so, no. We'll miss you. Well, I won't be here for the June RTM meeting. I would have been here if it were the 3rd, like it was supposed to be, but now that it's the 17th, I'm going to be out of town.
Okay, results on item 24-23. 70 in favor, 0 noes, 1 abstention. Item passes. I'll accept a motion to adjourn. The entire body. I see it second. I see those. Thank you all. Have a nice night.